After I finished my Twilight Zone video, it made me start thinking about the other horror anthology shows I like to watch, like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Outer Limits, and Thriller, amongst others, but the one that stuck out to me the most was Night Gallery. Not a lot of people know about this, but it was Rod Serling's spin-off to The Twilight Zone. It centered around Rod introducing a new painting each week, and every time this painting would have a story to tell. It's not as clever as The Twilight Zone, but it's entertaining in its own right. I'm going to be brief when talking about each story because if I talk too much, I'll reveal the ending, and that's something I'm not going to do for any of these. The big difference between this and The Twilight Zone is that Night Gallery was an hour-long program with multiple stories in it. It could range from 1 to 4 stories in one episode. That's the reason why I'm not titling this Top 10 Episodes, but rather Top 10 Stories. So, here are my Top 10 Night Gallery stories. Number 10. Cool Air. This episode centers around a woman who meets one of her father's old colleagues. He is an eccentric man who always keeps his room cold. She finds him fascinating and slowly falls in love with him. One night, the power goes out and his air conditioner can't work anymore. The less said about this episode, the better. This is one of the few Night Gallery episodes that has lots of dialogue, but you actually care what they're talking about. Number 9. A Question of Fear. A man who claims to have no fears accepts a wager of spending the night in a supposedly haunted house. While he's here, he finds ghosts, haunted pianos, and booby traps. Although he finds evidence of stuff set up just to scare him, he also finds things that haven't been set up at all. In fact, he can't find a logical explanation for them. Number 8. Certain Shadows on the Wall. After a brother poisons his sister, her shadow is mysteriously left on the wall. And that's all that happens. Surprising, right? Number 7. Pickmans Model. A woman falls in love with her art teacher who tells her that he only paints what he sees. But all his paintings are of a weird, grotesque monster, so she starts to investigate what exactly he sees. Number 6. Deliveries in the Rear. A doctor who teaches medical students about dissection is in dire need of bodies, so he hires grave robbers to get the bodies for him. No one likes the fact that he does this, not even him, but he claims it's all in the name of science, even if he gets arrested for it. And there are one or two twists and turns that I'm not mentioning for spoiler's sake. Number 5. Lindermans Catch. Out of all the episodes in Night Gallery, it's striking to know that this has, in my opinion, the loveliest musical score out of all of them. It centers around a tired old fisherman who's lonely with life, and when he finally catches a mermaid, he'll do anything to stay with her. Number 4. Green Fingers. A man tries to convince an elderly woman who likes to plant things to sell her house. That's the absolute best way I can describe this without giving anything away. Number 3. The Dead Man. A man is capable of replicating certain diseases only when he hears a certain amount of knocks. A doctor testing this idea wants to see how far he can go. Something goes wrong, and he ends up dying. You think I spoiled the episode for you right there. Well, I didn't. Number 2. The Doll. A girl receives a package in the mail. Out comes a mysterious-looking doll, and she just assumes her uncle sent her the doll. Turns out, he's never even set eyes on the thing before. But that's not all. Supposedly the doll talks, walks, sings, and dances, but only when the little girl is around. And my favorite Night Gallery story is The Caterpillar. It's about a man by the name of Warwick, who has finally found his true love. The only problem is, she's married to his best friend. But Warwick doesn't give up that easily. In fact, he's willing to kill for her. But the question is how? So a man approaches Warwick with an idea of putting a certain earwig in his best friend's ear. The only catch is that once this earwig is in your ear, it crawls into the brain and feasts upon it. It's a gross, horrifying concept, but it's done so well that it deserves the number 1 spot, and I think many Night Gallery fans would agree with me. I loved this episode so much that back in 8th grade, I actually remade it with a bunch of my friends. That's how good it is in my eyes. It deserves the spot as the number 1 Night Gallery story. Well, those were my top 10 night gallery stories. Hope you found it interesting, and I hope your list is similar to mine. If it's different, I don't care. But if you haven't even heard a night gallery, I recommend it. It's cheesy, but it's enjoyable in its own right. It's on par with The Twilight Zone with certain episodes. Well, all 10 of these episodes are on par, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I couldn't talk much about these episodes because I'd reveal a lot of plot, which is a hard thing. It is a show you really just have to watch, so stop listening to me and go watch it right now.